Jai Bhim, Jai Mullivasi. Welcome to MNT News Network English channel. And today we want to discuss on the topic Dr. Ambedkar's opinion on Indian census and why there should be census caste-wise census in 2021. So for this program, we have invited two eminent scholars and panelists, and one is Mr. Dr. Uh, one is Dr. P.S. Kambleji. He is a professor in economics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. And the other panelist, Advocate Priyadarshi Tenang, is former editor, Mulnivasi Bharat, and spokesperson, uh, Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi, editorial board member, Prabuddha Bharat. And these two eminent speakers are having vast experience, and we want to discuss with this subject with them. And first of all, I would like to invite all the viewers. Please share this program to through Twitter and WhatsApp and Facebook and all others, and it will be available live available in YouTube also. So please share this program to all your friends, and this will be useful for the benefit of the society. And welcome, Professor Dr. P.S. Kamble, sir.
Yes.
And
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you, sir. And welcome,
Thank you,
Advocate
sir.
Priyadarshi Tananji. Uh, so, sir, the census of India has over a number of decades ceased to be an operation in demography. This was the quotation written by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And Dr. Ambedkar said, it has become a political affair. Every community seems to be attempting to artificially argument its numbers at the cost of some other community for the sake of capturing greater and greater degree of political power in its own hands. The scheduled caste seemed to have been made common victim for the satisfaction of the combined greed of the other communities who, through their propagandists or enumerators, are able to control the operations and the results of the census. This was the opinion of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And the simple quotation cannot be elaborated. And we have to take an expert opinion to know about these quotations. And, we want to understand Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in different dimensions. So for this purpose, only we are discussing on this topic. And today, I would like to ask Mr. Telangji. The first question goes to you. What is the background of the Indian census? When it was started? What is its purpose? Advocate Priyadarshi Telangji.
Thank you, Tilak Kumarji, for inviting me to this very vital subject, important subject, as the decadal census exercise uh, is going to start. It was halted because of pandemic few years back. To now, it's again been in a discussion in the parliament, and yeah, a month back, the government has stated that they are not going to conduct caste census. So if this is called decadal census, so every 10 years the census is being conducted. The exercise of conducting this census started very early on from British India period of 1860s, 1860 65. Uh, it was sort of what is called then is like synchronous or non-synchronous census, and the first kind of census was published in 1981. So from that onwards, the census is conducted every 10 years. It's a huge gigantic exercise, uh, which is completed in a two phases. In the first phase, usually house listing operations are being done. where building and structure, whether it's residential, partly residential, or non-residentials, all this physical infrastructure are being listed, uh, and also it's been listed how they are making use of it. Uh, so all the amenities or information regarding the house and assets are being collected in this first phase, and then in second phase, population enumeration is being done, where the individuals which are residing in this country, their nationalities, their sort of occupation, and so on and so forth, is being collected with all sort of descriptions like their education, sort of uh, all the attributes which are usually being referred are being collected in this second session. And as I said, it's a very gigantic exercise. The task is very huge, taking months. And more or less, if you see the length and breadth of this country, around 20 lakh or more enumerators are being deployed to collect this information from various household, every household, not various, every household. And that way it's one of the biggest administrative exercise which is being conducted by the government of India. And if you look, uh, major policy decisions are being formulated uh, from this exercise, which are beneficial for the citizenry. And if you look back, this also helps in understanding the uh, social context, socio political context from that period of time. I mean, you take example of like plagues in Bombay or Pune. So this information at that period of time will give you what sort of social or political culture at that period of time, what sort of practices were at that period of time, and therefore this decadal exercise is very helpful in formulating policies and programs for the benefit of the country, for the development of country. It started in the British India, and after independence from 1951, the exercise has been conducted. If 2021 exercise of decadal census is continued, it will be sort of uh, uh, 16 census in a series. Yeah, that's the brief to make a comment on.
Uh, thank you, Advocate Priyadarshi, sir. And so our teachers and our employees are capable to conduct any type of census in this country, and we are having a very good capabilities to do census in this country. And I would like to ask Professor Dr. P.S. Kamble, sir, why Dr. Ambedkar had commented that the census of India has, over a number of decades, ceased to be an operation
Yes.
in demography. Sir,
Yes.
please explain, sir.
Oh, yes. Actually, what you quoted, that's a statement of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. That was an address given by Dr. Ambedkar in 1947. That address was given. And in that address, he has tried to analyze how the census is being carried out. Actually, the purpose of census is to generate data. And that data gives us a scenario of what socioeconomic conditions are there, what socioeconomic status of the people is there. And on the basis of that data, which is being generated by census, the efforts are being made to make use of that data for planning purpose, for preparation of the plan, formulation of the plan, and implementation as well. In addition to that, social welfare programs are there, programs for backward communities, programs for depressed communities, and those are prepared on the basis of what the data talks about, the socioeconomic conditions of these depressed communities is there. The perspective of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in this very famous quotation, in this very famous statement, is how the census is not wholeheartedly being carried out in the country like us. And major intention is politicization. It is to get political power. That's intention so far as carrying out of the census in the country like us is there. And it is therefore, what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar says is, it is a half-hearted exercise that is being undertaken so as to carry out census. And the intention is pure politicization, getting political power. Actually, in addition to that, other purposes also can be there. But how this census is being misused for getting political power, that is what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar tries to hit. So far as the present manner in which, or modus operandi of carrying out census is concerned. What is expected and desirable from the census is that how the social welfare programs can be formulated, how those can be implemented. As the result of that, the standard of living of the people can be improved, especially of the deprived communities. That is the intention. But to that extent, in that direction, the efforts are not being made. The efforts are made so as to get more and more political power. And all of us know political power is acquired taking into account the number of population. If a particular community has more number of people, then that community demands more seats and more portfolio ministers like that. And it is therefore what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar says is, it is actually, on the one hand, it is a half-hearted exercise so far as carrying out the population census is concerned. And more importantly, the intention is only political power, getting political power, coming into the political power. But in addition to that, the more intention, more objectives and purposes of population census is to generate data. And that data is for formulation of the plans, for realizing objectives for which the plans have been prepared, and prominently realizing and achieving social welfare maximization. But unfortunately, we have accepted population census half-heartedly, and consequently, the major objectives for which it is to be carried out, those have been missed out. Those have been missed out, and it is therefore what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was talking about. Actually, it is a half-hearted exercise, and therefore, in political power also, due representation is not being getting. Due representation in proportion of the population it was required. But as per the census that is carried out, it is half-heartedly, it is not fully, and more aspects and dimensions with the help of which we can realize with the help of population census. But those have been missed out. And it is therefore, there is a need for wholehearted exercise of population census. And that will enable, in the real sense of meaning, for what purpose population census is necessary, what role it plays, and more importantly, how it's a means of rapid and all-round socio-economic development of the economy, how the enhancement of development, how the improvement in the standard of living of the people, of the depressed communities, deprived communities, that can be achieved, that can be realized, that is real intention. But in that direction, the efforts are not being made. The efforts are made, how it will be possible for us, showing the number of population of that community, how the more and more political power that we get, in that direction the efforts are being made. And it is therefore what Dr. Ambedkar says is, it is exclusively right, it is absolutely right, the exercise of population census is not to the extent which is desirable and to the direction in which it is expected and desirable as well. And it is therefore, it is necessary to be taken into consideration the exercise of population census very seriously. Very seriously, and the major intention to carry out population census is social welfare maximization. Maximization of the welfare of the deprived communities. Maximization of the welfare of the downtrodden communities who should get the benefits of what socio-economic development that takes place in the country by formulation, implementation of economic development plans, and the objectives and targets to be realized. That should be the intention, that should be purpose. But in reality, in that direction, the efforts are not being made. That is the proposition, that is the submission Dr. B.R. Ambedkar tries to place before us in the address in which he has quoted what Tilak Kumar cited that statement that is there.
Thank you, Dr. B.S. Kamble sir. The intellectuals of this country are unable to receive the content of this quotation. You have excellently narrated. And now I would like to ask Advocate Priyadarshi sir. So the British government, when they are ruling this country, they have conducted census, and particularly they have conducted caste-based census. So what is the background of caste-based census in India? Please unmute. Please unmute. Priyadarshi sir, please unmute and speak. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, from the very beginning, if you see, it was a caste census only, right? When the British India, in the period of British India, the first synchronous census of India was done in 1881. It was the caste census, and it was carried out that way in all those British provinces till 1931, right? Uh, and therefore, the British government and everyone knew what is the percentage of different caste communities, right? The 1941 census could not be released because it was the time of Second World War, and it was not fully tabulated, so it was not presented. And as you know, in independent India, in 1951, the census was carried out, but it was decided by then government, the Nehru government, who proposed and was supported by Sardar Patel, that we are moving into the modern context, we are moving into modern India, and therefore the divisive, uh, as caste is one of the divisive factor, we should not enumerate that. And from then onwards, a Census Act 1948 came into force uh, post independence, and that's how the caste enumeration has stopped. But if you look at the constitutional provisions, and if you look at particularly the Article 340, and very precisely uh, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's resignation on the issues of OBCs, it's very evident that he wanted to enumerate caste. He was in a favor of caste enumeration, but he couldn't muster that sort of uh, uh, or he couldn't muster that sort of force to challenge the then very powerful government, Nehru government, and it was not easy for him. If even if you go through the debates of constitution, it was not easy for him to set forth or the constitute policies and programs as he did for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So from 1950 onwards, 50 onwards, the caste enumeration was not done, but Article 340 particularly talks about socio-economic backwardness of classes, and from that article flows or the not now what we can see a national commission for backward communities being constituted. So this article 340 demands uh, that socially and educationally backward classes of India should be constituted, should be identified. uh, when Mandal Commission was formulated in 1978, the report was submitted, and in the report, Mandal Commission do recommend that it was very difficult for them to determine the extent of backward communities from the last census of 1931, and therefore enumeration of caste should be done. But but as you can see from the debates, political debates, where all the parties are uh, from 2010 onwards, 10 onwards, all political party do have a consensus that caste census should be done, OBC census should be done. But outside parliament, they are not doing it. I mean, you might be remembering that during 2011 census, Rajnath Singh, who was a home minister then, almost admitted on the floor of the house that caste enumeration will be done in 2011. But sorry, the then Congress government, which was formulated later on under the Home Ministership of P. Chidambaram, while there was a consensus, as I said, politically outside and inside the parliament, the group of ministers, or which was formulated within ministers, come up with the scheme of socio-economic caste census, or which started enumerating. Not It was not basically a caste census, but enumeration of caste, which was not helpful. The way census is being conducted, and if you look very minutely at that exercise, you will see uh, our country, who usually employ teachers and other respective government employees for this exercise, in this socio-economic caste census, other people were appointed, and as a result, you can see there are a lot of errors. One thing, they did it very wrong at the first place. It was not according to the Census General of India. It was not according to the Census Act of this country, and what they formulated was only the caste. So if you see from Kaka Kalerkar Commission, there were something around 2,700 odd caste, which increased in Mandal Commission report to something around 3,000, or near about 4,000 caste. And if you see in socio-economic caste census and respective state list, the enumerations are more. But the way the exercise of socio-economic caste census was conducted, almost consuming 5,000 crore money, the entire exercise was fruitless. It didn't provide it, and even if it was conducted, it was not published. So, in that context, if you see what Babasaheb Ambedkar is talking about, it's very right that in the modern area, nowadays, data is new oil. The more control information you have, the more access to information you have, you are sitting on the seat of power. So it's a game of power basically. The more controlled information, the more access to information you are in a position to control the entire sort of decision making, to control the entire policy formations, to control what sort of information to be given and what sort of information not to be given. So this sort of caste census is very much required, and though it was being conducted till 1931 by during the British India period, from independence onward, it was dropped, considering that caste is a divisive factor. But even if, there is no discrimination if enumeration is not been done. I mean, it's a stupid and wrong argument, right? So
Yes.
basically, who is afraid of caste census? Who are beneficial if this information is hidden? That are the important questions we need to ponder on. And the more we ponder on such questions, the more insights we will get, and we will come to know that as data is new oil, how this data is being used by various governments, and not only governments now. You see the elections, European elections and American elections, how the information is being controlled and tilted to favor one party and other, right? So that's why uh, we should demand, because caste is the reality of this country, and if caste inequality exists, it doesn't exist just because of it has been enumerated, but it has other cultural and other notions, right? That is not the subject, but if you see that all the matrimonials, all the caste communities relations are with respect to caste panchayat and so on and so forth. What is wrong in enumerating this caste? It was
Yes.
done
Yes.
in the British India period. It should be done in the post-independence period, so that we can be better informed. We are in a better position to formulate policies not only for the weaker sections, but also to limit the people who are acquiring more wealth apart from their proportion in the population. You see the power consumption, or you see the wealth distribution of this country. Who are the people who are acquiring those wealth? Who are on the citadel of power? So if our agenda is to redistribute the wealth of this country, it's very, very essential to enumerate the caste so that we can be in better position to formulate policies and to distribute the wealth of this country.
Thank you, Advocate Priyadarshi sir. And and now I would like to ask one question to Dr. P.S. Kamble sir. Sir, give me a brief answer for this question. In every country, the census is being conducted for knowing the numerical data of the people so as to frame policies and to allot budget. Why in India it is not being followed? Sir,
It's very vital question that you asked, Tilak Kumar. Actually, this census is useful in realizing exclusive social objectives. Social objective, that is budget allocation for welfare of the weaker sections, deprived communities, then female, women, children. That we, on the basis of population, we can allocate. Supplementary to that, representation to be given. That is also, that population is a decisive factor. Census is a decisive factor that can play a very crucial role. But unfortunately, the social dimension, that is caste, is not being taken into consideration. And it is therefore, to that extent, in proportion of the population, the distribution of power that doesn't take place. For your kind of information, as per Oxfam report, 1% households in India have possessed the 73% share of wealth and income in country. And during the corona pandemic as well, there is an addition of 19 billionaire households in India during the corona pandemic period also. In billion US dollars, their wealth has been generated. But major section of the population society is suffering from the survival because of the loss of the living sources and means of livelihood. In this backdrop, that is of crucial importance. Who are the beneficiaries? What Advocate Telang was talking about is absolutely right. Who are the beneficiaries of the policies those have been formulated and being implemented? And unless and until in that direction, we are in a position to access to the data based on the caste census or socioeconomic census, we are not in a position to get an idea who are the beneficiaries of the development policies which are being formulated, which are being implemented, and the benefits and fruits of the development, those are being realized and distributed among the strata of the society. Are they beneficiaries belong to the deprived communities? Are the beneficiaries belong to the upper caste? Are the beneficiaries from the business community and industrialist community? That we are not in a position to identify because we don't have that data. Who are the businessmen? Who are the industrialists? And to what extent they are consuming the share of GDP or growth that is being realized in the country like us. And it is therefore the policies of India directly towards liberalization, directed towards privatization, and that leads to concentration of economic, wealth, and political power. And that is taking place in the country like us because the policies are not being formulated to eradicate and control inequalities. And when the population census is there based on the caste or social criteria, that will give us an idea who are the excessive beneficiaries, who are the abnormal, extraordinary beneficiaries of the development policies which are being formulated, especially the policies like privatization, liberalization. And it is therefore for the proper preparation of the plans, for the proper implementation of the plan, for the allocation of the budgets for social welfare, women and child development, there is a need for this caste census. But as it is not available, the policies are formulated haphazardly. And more importantly, the benefits of these policies which are formulated and implemented are concentrated in the hands of a few households. And we are not in a position to undertake or not in a position to understand what is the share, what is their share in the total population. What is their proportion in the total population? We do not know because in that direction, census is not being carried out. And it is therefore when this caste census will be carried out, that will give us an idea. These are the industrialists, these are the businessmen. They are deriving the benefits of the policies which are being formulated and implemented. On the contrary, the communities which are suffering from poverty, inequality, unemployment, those can we identify based on this caste census. And it is therefore it is rather difficult for us to identify and recognize who are the victims of the policies which are being formulated and implemented, and who are consuming lion's shares in the total benefits of the policies which are being formulated and implemented, and why we are not in a position to get representation in proportion of the population in the benefits. Those are being derived from the growth and development that is being achieved and realized by the country. And it is therefore already what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has very rightly pointed out, haphazard effort directed towards the population census is it is intended only to get into the political power. Only getting political power, that is a smaller number of population might be getting more power, that is there, or showing what we call it as a illusionary number of the population, and getting more and more in the political power that is happening. But in addition to that, number one, when caste census will be carried out, that will give us, or that will distribute, sharing the political power in proportion of the population. But in addition to that, that will give due representation to the social strata of the society, especially poor section of the society. And for that reason, this caste census is very much necessary. Yes, it is a rigorous effort. It is a time-consuming exercise, but it is most urgently needed. It is very essential. It is very needed, in absence of which the role of the government in socio-economic development of the economy, and prominently distribution of benefits among the deprived communities, among the victim communities, that will not be possible. Otherwise, when we proceed further with the help of these policies, with the help of, in absence of the caste census, that will concentrate wealth, income, and consumption in the hands of a few. And more inequalities will be further intensified. The gravity of the inequality further it will increase. And for that reason also, caste census will be helpful. It will be a means of, or effective means of, proper planning and development, and more importantly, distribution of benefits or fruits of the development that country realizes. It should not happen that only a few strata of the society, a few households of the population are deriving the benefits of development that country realizes, and that is happening at this moment as well. At this moment, that is happening only. We are giving more emphasis on privatizing, we are giving more emphasis on liberalization, but it is resulting in concentration of wealth inequality, income in the hands of a few households. On the other hand, poverty, inequality, unemployment, that has been victimized by the major strata of the society. And consequently, we are not in a position to formulate a policy whereby we will overcome the challenges those have been emerged out because of the problems of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Because we do not have that social data, we do not have that caste data. When caste data will be hands of us, then in that direction, that will be useful for us in formulating that policy that will eradicate poverty among the deprived communities, that will eradicate poverty from the victims of the policies which are being formulated and implemented. And it is therefore, it is not only the issue of representation, but in addition to that, the overall dimension of the development and planning, that will be strengthened, that will be more effective, that will be more comprehensive, more successful then and then only when in that direction the efforts will be made, in which caste census will be carried out very honestly, rigorously, and sincerely. Over to you, Tilakumar.
Sir, heart-burning issues, sir. And now I would like to ask Advocate Priyadarshi. Sir, Dr. Ambedkar said that the census of India has become a political affair. The actual purpose of the census is to know the numerical. What is the relation between the percentage of population and its impacts on politics? Dr. Advocate Priyadarshi Telangji.
Yeah, as I said earlier, in the gigantic exercise of census, whatever policy formation has to be done with the help of data available. And looking at the census data, what it is being evident from the data is that 25% of this country's population is known fully what are their social and economic status, particularly the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Their economic, educational, their backwardness is being calculated, tabulated, and published. But the rest of the 75% population in this country are completely blind. The OBCs, the general category, so-called general category people, they are not aware about their own. This country is not aware about their own socio-economic status of their 75% population. So, if from a few long years we are narrating that India has to be Vishwaguru. In order to become a Vishwaguru, you should know your own people. You don't have any information with respect to the 75% of your country's population, and you want to be Vishwaguru. And if you look at the census website, the census website will say that Rigveda or some Kautilya has documented the population and type of population and the taxpayer and so on. So what's wrong in tabulating it today? Who is stopping you? On the floor of the house, it has been decided. You have accepted the recommendations of Mandal Commission. All the political parties are in consensus that uh, the caste enumeration should be conducted. If you take the evidence of two states like Maharashtra and Orissa, both the state assembly has passed a resolution that center should conduct a caste enumeration. So, what is the hurdle? So, in that perspective, when we look at Baba Sahib's statement, it is clear that those people who are sitting on the citadel of power, they want to be in a powerful position by controlling the information, by accessing the information, by providing only those required information and not collecting it. So in that perspective, when we try to see towards the statement of Baba Sahib, it's very evident. Uh, it's very uh, clear that people who are sitting on the position of power are trying to control those information. So what is required, if that resources or that power has to be distributed, we want information. So, I mean, there are few groups among uh, different states who are uh, advocating about caste census. They are advocating it from the 2011 onwards. If I give you an example of Maharashtra, when the exercise of 2021 caste census started for a shorter period of time in 2019, people have pasted a placard on their houses that if you don't mention a column of OBC, we are not part of this census. So that sort of determination has to be carried out across India to know who we are, where we stand, what are our socio-economic status, where we are in terms of landholding, where we are in terms of our households, where we are in terms of sharing the resources which are available, natural resources. Natural resources, as Professor Kamble has said, that is being distributed to few corporates. It's uh, look at the monetization policy which has been glorified now, that being given, it's not being sold out but it's giving on lease. It's all sort of thing which is happening just because we don't have ample amount of information available with us which will help us to construct our own path of development. I mean, uh, it's a sad part that most of the economists in this country don't formulate their articles or their theory with respect to development from this perspective. As I said, we are unaware about 75% of this country's population where they stand socio-economically. But most of the economists who set forth the path for development doesn't address the issue which lies beneath or the simple informations of various categories and communities. Most of the economists don't advocate the theory of well-being as formulated by Dr. Amartya Sen, and who gives credit to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar for such advancement of well-being. Now, according to his sort of proposition and all, the institutions like UNDP has formulated Human Development Index, right? So how where we stand in this human development index, where all those communities from different caste, gender, uh, uh, from social backwardness, where they stand in this all human development, in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of GDP, how they contribute to the GDP. All these factors are being ignored by most of the economists, and it would be delightful if Dr. Kamble sir contribute or make his remark in that context. But as far as Babasaheb's statement is concerned, uh, he it's evident from Article 340 and his resignation that he was in favor of caste census, and that should be demanded forcefully inside the parliament and outside the parliament. It's unfortunate that though the prime minister is claiming himself that he is coming from other backward community, but he is not able to express his own mind because the government is being run not by the person who are sitting in the parliament, but those people who are sitting in the Nagpur. So therefore, if you look at the statement of those people who are sitting in Nagpur, they are not in favor of caste census. So therefore, we have to muster all our power, all our energy in order to make our argument stronger and to advocate for caste census.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sir, another important question I would like to ask Professor Kamble, sir. So every community seems to be attempting to artificially augment its numbers at the cost of some other community for the
Yes.
sake of capturing greater and greater degree of political power in its own.
Yes. What you referred, Tilak Kumar, that's a statement of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. What
Yes,
he is trying to propose is that how population census is being misused, how it is being misused for getting more or excessive power than which is desirable and required, and that is shown by imaginary figures of population. And on the basis of that illusionary number of population, more political power is being acquired and it is being obtained. And how it is being misutilized, that is what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar proposes with the help of the statement. And it's very realistic. It's realistic in the total population whose share is might be less than 5% are enjoying more benefits of the political power. And that is case of some of the other communities as well. But on the contrary, deprived communities are having major share in the total population. Their representation and benefits of political power, they are not getting to the extent which is desirable and expected. And it is therefore what Dr. Ambedkar has talked, has proposed, has stated is absolutely correct. And he has stated that in 1947. And now we are talking in 2021. It is more intensively and extensively correct today as well. When we try to analyze who are the representatives, who are the ministries, sometimes data is being published. What is the social background? What is the religious background, caste background of the people who are representatives in the parliament, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, as well as state assembly and Vidhan Parishad. Sometimes data comes. And who are the ministries? What is the social stratification of that? And when that is analyzed and that is examined, we come to know that actually the majority of people or whose share is major in the total population, those are not getting that desirable share. That's a ground reality. Maybe this ministry portfolio allocation, maybe representation in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and also state assembly and council as well. That is happening. One point I want to elaborate what Advocate Telang talked about. The policies which are formulated and suggested, which are directly or which are exclusively directed towards promoting growth. You might be knowing we are talking about $5 trillion economy by 2020. Actually, it was proposed for 20. It was proposed for 2021, but we have further extended to 24. We are just talking about $5 trillion economy. But what about the distribution of that $5 trillion economy that we didn't talk about? Who are the beneficiaries of that growth that we are going to realize? Suppose we succeed in realizing $5 trillion economy. Who will be beneficiaries of that? All 135 crore population, those will be getting benefits of that growth that will be realized. We are not talking about. We are just talking about just how economic growth will be realized, and India will be economically supreme country of $5 trillion economy. But we are not talking about what share 135 or 136 crore people will get in the $5 trillion economy. We are not talking about. And consequently, I mentioned earlier as well, in the 100 billionaires in India, added 19 billionaires during the period of 1 year, which was a Corona pandemic period. In Corona pandemic period of 1 year, additional 19 billionaire household we have added. And crores of people are suffering from how to survive. Number of deaths have been taken place. Number of people are not getting medical facilities and bed and oxygen, etc., etc., etc. Their deaths are taking place, but unfortunately, during the period of 1 year of Corona pandemic, it is 1 year and 6 months. Additional 19 billionaires have been added, and the policy which is being formulated and implemented, what Advocate Telang has rightly pointed out, we are concentrating on only growth. We are concentrating on how GDP will increase, how economy will be of $5 trillion economy, but how it will be distributed, and what GDP that we have realized and achieved, how it is being distributed. What are the shares of the deprived communities? What are the shares of the poor communities in the total GDP of India? We are not talking about. We are just talking about economic supremacy of our country, economic supremacy of India. Yes, it is necessary, economic supremacy, but more than that, what is important is how it is being distributed, how it is being allocated. Are the poor strata is in a position to get a desirable share in proportion of the population in the GDP or growth that will be realized? It is being realized. We are not answering that. We are not touching upon as well. We are not touching upon what is the share of scheduled caste in the total GDP of India. What is the share of OBCs in the GDP of India? What will be the share of scheduled tribes in the GDP of India? What will be the share of Bahujans in the GDP of India? We are not talking about. We are talking about only GDP growth of India will be $5 trillion economy. Yes, that is important. But more than that, what is important is how we are going allocating. How we are going to allocate that GDP that will be realized. That is more important. Only growth has no importance at all, because that generates and creates inequality, and that is taking place. In that perspective, our policy is handicapped. Yes, our policy is paralyzed, because we are not talking about how the benefits to be distributed of the growth that the economy realizes. We are just talking about we want that growth, we want that growth. And what Advocate Telang has rightly pointed out, we are implementing the program of demonetization. We are just dismantling public sector. At this moment, as per my information knowledge, there is not one enterprise or one activity fully owned by the government of India. And we are talking about, at this moment, only 12 nationalized banks are there. In future, there will not be a single nationalized bank. In 1966, it was nationalized 14 banks, and later on 6, about 24 nationalized banks were there. The number is now 12. And in future, there will be 0 number of the nationalized banks. And nationalize of the bank was, that program was implemented to promote social welfare and social welfare activities and schemes and programs. Henceforth, in future, private banks, foreign banks are not in a position to formulate that policy, at least that will benefit the deprived communities, the weaker section of the society, that will not happen. And we are declaring running of the banks, operating of the banks is not duty and responsibility of the government. It is duty and responsibility of the private sector. And in the states and minorities, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has given rightly what duties and responsibility of the private sector are there, what duties and responsibilities public sector should shoulder, how the insurance sector should be developed, how agriculture should be developed, how industry should be developed, and what role the government should play in the industry sector development. It has been very systematically defined and demarcated by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the states of minorities. And states and minorities is a proxy constitution. It is a proxy constitution which has been prepared and published by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And fortunately, being a chairman of the drafting committee, all those provisions, those are there in the states and minorities, have been incorporated in the Constitution of India. What he has presented in the states and minorities, all have been incorporated, and he has rightly and clearly demarcated the duties and responsibilities. Those are there in the mixed economy, private sector and public sector, and in addition to that, what role the government can play in education. Dr. Ambedkar talks about a separate budget for education, but we are not spending 5% of GDP on education as well, and the position of health sector is very worse. We are not crossing 2% of GDP as well. During Corona pandemic, to some extent, enhancement has been taken place, no doubt about that, but it is inadequate and insufficient. And it is therefore, only growth is not necessary. It is necessary, but it is not sufficient. In addition to that, distribution of growth among the deprived communities, among the poor communities, among the victim communities of crucial importance. But in that direction, no efforts are being made in the policies, implementation and preparation as well. And therefore, at this moment, there is no policy to control inequalities in India. No policy is there whereby we are in a position to control growing inequalities in India. And that's a misery of the policy which is being formulated and implemented. We can say it is paralyzed in that front so far as policy preparation and implementation is concerned. Over to you, Tilak Kumar.
Thank you, Professor Kamble sir. This program is about 1 hour program, and there are so many points to be discussed. So I would like to club the remaining points, and we are having only 2-3 minutes. Why the enumerators are able to control the operations and the results of the census? And another question, in India, why the ruling class is deliberately not counting OBCs? Late Pranab Mukherjee deliberately announced in the parliament that we don't want to count OBCs. The present ruling government also announced that they don't want to count OBC census, conduct OBC census. What Dr. Ambedkar enlightened in this subject needs to be enlightened more. Why the ruling class is so determined against castaway census? Sir, Advocate Priyadarshi sir, please conclude on this subject within 1 minute.
Yeah, as I said, for any development purpose, I mean, the question control of information is very clear. You take an example of Karnataka. It is been assumed that Lingayats and Vokaligas are in majority in that state. On the contrary, it's not true, right? If you see the combination of scheduled caste and Muslims, they are more than those Vokaligas and Lingayats. So the all political power equation changes if these facts come into picture, if that has been accepted. So all the political equation changes in that particular state, right? So in order to keep those powerful position with themselves, the information is hidden, not given. It's as simple as that. But if we talk from human development point of view, it's also important, as Professor was mentioning, that now three aspects are being majorly considered for a development, like healthy life, educated life, and sort of a decent standard of living. So are we providing well-being to the majority of population of this country. The pandemic has shown us that how poorly infrastructured we are with respect to health. The pandemic has shown us how we can force number of people below poverty life below poverty line with a single stupid decisions like a master stroke, what it is being called master stroke of demonetization, or sort of uh, 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 lockdown. So these are, so if you are well aware with all those people, what can be expected from this government when they are called NDA, which stands for no data available, right? So people on the floor of the parliament, the government on the floor of the parliament is saying, categorically denying that they don't have numbers how many workers or laborers has been died in the evacuation, right? So this sort of apathy towards the population of this country is shown by the government who are power, and also by the political parties who are in opposition. And therefore it's very essential for all of us to look at the diversity who are, or whatever the structure there are which are in the public. For example, if you do have a political party, if Congress is a political party, in their organizational structure, to whom they are representing, are they giving enough political or powerful positions to the people from scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and other backward communities? What political parties are doing is that they are formulating the cell to represent scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, or minorities for that matter. And therefore, what Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi is advocating particularly, to give an example, is to diversify the parliament, to diversify the state assemblies, because we are a diverse country. We have n number of castes who are not being represented. So in that matter, unless and until we accept this diversity principle and improve this diversity, the issues of caste enumeration won't be solved. As of now, there are major advocates of caste enumeration, and I am sure in a time to come, with looking at the caste and political compulsion of the political parties, uh, I'm sure the way BJP is been extending and appropriating OBCs, I'm sure they have to do this caste enumeration. But at the same time, we have to muster all the forces and power which are lying with us to advocate the caste census should be conducted. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Priyadarshi Telangi. And Professor Dr. P.S. Kamble, sir. Sir, please give your valuable
Yes,
concluding
yes.
remark.
What is happening is,
With,
already I have mentioned, it is misutilization of the census for getting excessive power, which is not desirable and expected to be received. But because of this faulty or incorrect population census, some households, those are hereditary as well, those are deriving major benefits of the political power, and consequently policy making and the benefits of the policies. Supplementary to that, when you referred to the census of the OBC, when before independence census was carried out, along with Pakistan, the share of OBCs in population was 52%. If that is taken into account, what is their representation into political power, into education, into employment? When it is taken into account, it is a thing of serious concern, and it is therefore all or more or less agree with the not to be conducted caste census that is there, and it is therefore in that direction the efforts are not being made. But unless and until the caste census, actually, what is a misunderstanding of the caste census is caste census means increasing casteism. That is not the case. Caste census means becoming more and more casteist. That is not the case. caste census means identifying, getting recognition of the different communities. And what Advocate Telling has rightly pointed out, diversification is of crucial importance because it is there in India. And we should accept that. And unless and until we diversify, we are not in a position to diversify the benefits of political power and other benefits as well, benefits of development as well, growth as well. And it is therefore, when caste census will take place, it will distribute political power. I would say decentralization of the political power will take place. In addition to that, social benefits, welfare benefits, and benefits of the growth, that will be also distributed in a diversified manner. In a diversified manner, and we have a habit of that concentration and centralization. Political power is centralized in the hands of a few, and it is going by hereditary. By hereditary, it is going, and that has become a habit for us. That has become a habit, and therefore we are not in a position to leave that or sacrifice that. And that is the major thing of concern so far as not taken seriously for a caste census. Caste census is not taken seriously because there is a danger of decentralization of the political power. There is a danger of decentralization of the distribution of benefits of the growth and development and allocation of the budgets as well, and all others will be diversified. And that should not happen. That is the proposition. That is the perspective of the ruling or into political power households and communities, and therefore they are not ready. But unless and until caste census is carried out, we should be very clear. Caste census doesn't mean casteism. It is identifying who are there, what diversification of the population is there in the country, and they should get at least some benefit. And unless and until in that direction the census is carried out, we are not in a position to distribute or allocate that benefit, maybe into political power, maybe in the growth and development, maybe in the budget, or maybe in the social welfare programs and activities. And it is therefore that will play a very important role in diversification, decentralization, and distribution of benefits of the all perspective, political, social, economic, etc., etc. And for that reason, that is very much needed, that is urgently needed, that is there. And that will help us in the proper formulation of the policies, proper formulation of the plans, and rigorous, sincere, honest implementation, whereby the results will be pro-development, pro-social development, pro-social welfare, and what Dr. Ambedkar talked about, equality in economic, social, and political perspective. Dr. Ambedkar has rightly pointed out there should be equality in economic, social, and political perspective. And when we accepted Constitution, only political equality that is expected to be realized and materialized, but that also didn't happen. That also didn't happen, and we totally failed in economic inequality and social inequality as well. There is a space for implementing or realizing political equality as well. And unless and until the caste census is being carried out, it should be sincere, rigorous, and honest, because it's a gigantic exercise, what Advocate has rightly pointed out, and that should be honesty, rigorousness, and state of mind as well. We should be neutral. We should not be prejudice minded, and that perspective is required. India is for all. India is for all and not for a few. And therefore, Dr. Ambedkar was talking about, I'm Indian first and Indian last as well.
Yes.
I'm Indian first and last as well, because India is most important. Regional and territory, local recognition has no meaning at all. India is the first. I am Indian first and Indian last. In that perspective we should have, and we should go for census and formulate policy and plans in that perspective and implement it very rigorously, sincerely. As the result of that, social, political, and economic equalities can be realized. Diversification and distribution of the benefits will be to the extent desirable and which is expected and desirable as well. Over to you, Tilak.
Thank you, Professor Dr. P.S. Kambli sir, and thank you, Advocate Priyadarshi Telangi, for enlightening the viewers. And this discussion will be useful. And this discussion, I think most of the OBC and other intellectuals may catch this discussion, and they can climb in the right forum for climbing caste-based census in this country for overall development of our country. So thank you for
Thank you,
joining
Kumar
us
ji. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
and
Thank you very much.
we will invite you again and again. And
Thank you very much.
please
Our
continue
pleasure.
to
My
join us.
pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you very much, Kumar. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, viewers, for watching this program. The MIT News Network, India's intellectual channel. And tomorrow we are going to discuss on the other subject at the same time by 8:30 p.m. And please contribute your valuable contributions for the development of this MIT News Network. And please share this program and please watch this program again and again. And please enlighten the public by watching this program. Thank you. Jai Bhim, Jai Mullawasi.